Just about on YouTube.
Hello, Counselor Susie, how are you?
All right, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Something ahead of the next meeting, so you have time to read it.
The hour being 7:01 PM on Monday, March 13th. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. And before we go any further, I'd ask you to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
flag
flag, of the United States of America,
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're joined this evening by Katie Gargano, act as our recording secretary, town clerk as well, city clerk as well. I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here, online, on Zoom, in a hotel room, by myself. I would have been there this evening, but the impending snowstorm forced me to change my plans. So,
Counselor Littman,
Here.
Counselor Haynes.
Here.
Counselor Felch,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here. We're also joined this evening at council excuse me, by Kirk Viati, our city manager, and working with us tonight on our audio visual is Glenn Smith, the finance director. Agenda item 7A, regular city council meeting minutes of February 27th, 2023. These minutes were distributed to the city council on March the 3rd, 2023. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Item number 9 on our agenda is citizen comments for matters not on the agenda. And I don't see anyone with us here in the chamber that might be speaking on that, so we would move along to agenda item 13, which is 13A. Public hearing, acceptance of a 2023 New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Aquatic Plant Control Grant. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the March 1st, 2023 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of SAU. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:04 PM. And if anyone would like to speak to that matter, now would be the appropriate time. I'd like to close the hearing at 7:04 PM. That item may be taken up later on this evening under unfinished business. We have no presentations. Under the mayor's report, a couple of things. I spoke the last time we were here about our particularly successful boys and girls varsity basketball teams at Laconia High School. Laconia boys won their first round game at the high school, beating Merrimack Valley in overtime in what was one of the most exciting high school basketball games I've seen in quite some time. They were ahead in the first half. Merrimack Valley made a run at them in the second half and took the lead. And a number of us made the mistake of thinking that maybe it was all over for Laconia boys high school basketball. They came back and they won at the buzzer. It was just really exciting and really a special night to be in the high school gymnasium, which in and of itself is beautiful to look at, and to have a full gymnasium of teachers and parents and students and visitors cheering. It was really a great atmosphere. Unfortunately, they lost in the next round. The girls moved along until the Final Four as well, winning their first game and losing their second game. But both put up a very strong fight in the first half against a team that was more talented and just came gunning for them, that's for sure. But I think we have an awful lot to be proud of once again in the city by some of our athletic teams. I know it's not communities are more than sports and more than athletic teams, but certainly the boys and the girls teams and their coaches and their fans really behaved in such a way and accomplished so much that we should all be very proud of them and what they've done. So if you come across a player, one of those teams, congratulate them, if you would. I'd also like to recognize, on a sad note, someone who I got to know in the past couple of years, who passed away last week, I believe it was, of Bob Cunningham, who was a 28-year employee of the Department of Public Works. And if anyone ever met Bob, whether he was on the job or in his retirement like I did, he just exuded a passion about his work here in the city and what this city meant to him. And he had a job that many people may not aspire to. And he worked in our drainage system, in our sewer system. And he had, and I went back and read an article about him when he retired. And the DPW director spoke about Bob in such a way that it's hard not to be impressed. It's one thing to be a foreman on a job and be telling people what to do. It's another thing to be a foreman on a job, know what to do, but not be afraid to jump into a sewer and be chest deep in some real ugly material and pitch in and work. But that is, that's who Bob Cunningham was. He was characterized as someone who had a lot of courage and capacity. And when Bob retired, he spoke about his job and he said, "I love my job." And as I got to know him over the past couple of years, he really did, because he was still speaking about it. He knew all the connections throughout the city. He remembered where all the big breaks took place and what they did to fix them. He had a computer of thousands and thousands of pictures of the jobs that they worked on. You know, in his retirement on Parker Street with Diane, you know, he was particularly proud of his children, his grandchildren. He loved NASCAR and the Patriots, and he was just a genuinely nice individual. I wish I had known him when he was a professional in the city, but he passed away. I just wanted to say, on behalf of the city, express our condolences to a real professional and a kind person. So, and certainly our best to Diane and his extended family. That would conclude my mayor's remarks this evening. Move on to item number 16, which is council comments. Any council comments this evening? Councilor Cheney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I brought this up before, but I was kind of hoping that finance could take a look at the increases in taxes, actual dollar increases in taxes for some of our residents in areas where they took phenomenal increases. $7, $8, $9, $10,000 in 1 year. I was hoping we could look at that and see if legally there's some way we could spread it out over several years. I don't know. I don't have a solution, but it just seems to me, I mean, I'm thankful I don't live on a lake, but you know, at the same time, it could happen to any of us, I'm sure. And it'd be nice to know the city would make some effort to ameliorate that sudden increase in actual dollars.
Would you like to speak to that?
Sure, I think we need to familiarize ourselves statutorily what is possible. I know in some other, I know in Massachusetts, I know of some communities that have something that so much of an increase can happen in a given year and then that type of thing, but I'm not sure. It will really depend on what the tax law in the state is.
I guess that was my request, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor, was that we look at it and see if there's anything we can do. And we ought to set a precedent for, because this could happen to condos or whatever, and all of a sudden people who might not be able to afford it would be faced with these huge increases.
So maybe the next step would be, Kirk, is to ask someone at the Mitchell Group to see
Yeah,
what the,
we can we can dig into
Start
some
that conversation with
statutorily,
them, right?
what's out there. Yep.
and then once we know what we might be able to do statutorily, then say report back to us, and if appropriate, and perhaps the finance committee is the way to go, but
Thank you.
fair enough.
Thank you.
Appreciate you raising it, Councilor Cheney. Any other council comments tonight? How about committee reports?
Finance Committee is meeting Thursday night at 6:30 to take up the matter of the property along the railroad in between Lakeport and the Guilford line.
Okay, what time? That's at 6 o'clock,
6:30.
6:30.
Thursday.
Okay, great. Liaison reports?
Oh, ma'am,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, go right ahead.
Public
Committee or liaison?
Committee, this is Public Works. We had a lengthy agenda and we got through it tonight. The first was the proposed city ordinances. The ordinance itself outlines the differences between, and before I even start, we're still getting a legal opinion about whether it's legal to spend taxpayers' money, and there's a difference between there's a difference between a taxpayer and a ratepayer, so the city manager is gonna get legal recommendations as far as that. But as far as the sewer ordinance is concerned, and far as meeting the EPA requirements, the ordinance itself specifically outlines, and I think Wes could go through it if anyone would like to, but the differences between what is the expectations of the city and what is going to be the expectations of either the condo association, the business, or a private entity as far as their responsibilities to meet the ordinances. And at this point in time, I didn't jot it down, correct, but the recommendation was to accept it, but that moves it to the public hearing,
It was to move this to a public hearing for
July.
July 24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And this is ultimately to determine what our responsibility is if we take on inspecting private sewer systems. So if we take that on and we start doing the inspections, how do we enforce the repairs that need to be made so it doesn't fall back onto us? And so that's we need to get this into an ordinance form so we can have some recourse behind that, and a plan that we can get out to the private sewer system owners way ahead of the actual implementation.
Okay. The other thing, second item was what the council's method for apportioning costs to abutters as far as private road. And we took up, I think it was Paugus and just that as an example, Christmas Island and that area. And the Public Works Director outlined to us the means of looking at how to apportion it, the cost, whether it's lot size, acreage size, frontage, and the whole works. And the committee asked that with the recommendation, and asked the city Public Works Director to look and see what other cities and towns were doing for some specific guidance as far as that is concerned before we move forward with that. And there are going to be down the road, there's probably going to be other situations as far as roads, private roads, that we'd have to look at. Third thing was the automated solid waste collection update, and the committee heard from the Public Works Director, and there was some housekeeping issues as far as eliminating the remote recycling and other things like that. But I think one of the sticking issues was going to be the looking at, we did develop a policy as far as getting an extra sticker as far as extra cans are concerned. And we looked at, and we did recommend that, his Public Works Director's recommendations, and, he's going to be looking into that situation as far as how to handle that is concerned. And last but not least was, we heard from, Wes as far as the retaining wall policy, and it's very simple. It's 50% city and it's 50% owner, and that's the way it's handled, and we recommended that that be accepted also.
Thank you. Do you have a question, a follow-up question or input there, Counselor Cheney?
No, I'm sorry, no.
Okay, no, it's all good. Just look like you had something to say. Counselor Haynes, Counselor Felch.
So liaison report, the city manager, Chief Canfield, myself and Councilor Cheney met with Library Director Deanne Hunter and Trustee John Moriarty about concerns regarding the behavior of people, mostly homeless, at the library. They've put a lot of safeguards in place, including locking the back doors, so you have to ask for a key. We discussed having more of a police presence, especially during the hours of 2 to 8, which appears to be the most prevalent problems. I have also been attending their trustees meetings, and in my opinion, they're doing a great job addressing the problems and any other problems that come up as far as that goes. So I think we had a long discussion. It was, and I think it went well. I don't know.
Yeah,
you
if
wanna add more
if
to
I
it.
may, we, following the meeting, Chief Canfield and I met, and we've already figured out a way to get, we're gonna call it some outreach
Okay.
into the library. So during that time, so that should start picking up anytime now, and hopefully we'll kind of accomplish some of the stuff that we tried to do, came up with the other day.
I'd like to add to what Tony said. Two things. One, I think we learned that any calls to the police department have been almost instantly responded to.
Yes.
They're happy with the efforts that have been made. The thing I thought that was important, Tony touched on, the important hours are 2 to 8. What happens is Isaiah closes at 2 and reopens at 8. And so what's happening is they're leaving Isaiah. This is what they told us.
Mhm.
The homeless are leaving Isaiah and coming to the library to wait until 8 o'clock so they get back to Isaiah. And in the short term, I'm not sure there's much we can do, but in the long term, we probably ought to be looking for a solution to that 6-hour
Yeah.
window.
Thank you.
No, I just, Brett and I had a conversation this morning in reference to that. I just think that, if at all possible, we could get some cooperation or maybe some assistance from them, that, meaning Isaiah, that, the library is for people that want to use the library. It's really not conducive to, it's not a homeless shelter. I'm sorry. And it sounds crude, it sounds crass, but,
In fairness, I would tell you, and I'm generally like you, not terribly sympathetic. But one of the things that was said was the people who have caused problems, the library issues a do not trespass order. And won't allow them to come back
Mhm.
in. If they in any way interfere with the kids in the library, they get a no trespass order. And again, Tony touched on, but the main problem apparently was the bathrooms. They were going in there, locking themselves in and shooting up. And so the library now has locked those. You have to go and get a key, and they give you a certain amount of time.
Yep.
I might need more than others.
And to add to that, since they've been working on this in the last year, the trespass orders have been cut in half.
Yep.
So that means they are slowly having less problems. Another thing the library is looking into is odor detectors for the bathrooms, because they have problems with smoking in the bathrooms, and of course, you can't go into the bathroom, so you can't tell, but then somebody walks out and a kid goes into the bathroom, or else you can smell the smoke, so.
Moriarty, Mr. Moriarty, told the appointment committee. And I think some of the counselors, maybe all of the council, that he would have liked to have a security guard. And we certainly discouraged that. That we felt we should be doing that function. It seemed to me like we'd made a lot of progress in that direction.
Right.
Did you get that?
I
same
I
feeling?
did, and from going to the meetings as well.
Right,
Yes.
and so what I would say to you is, my impression a while ago would have been, the library sits there, crosses their hands and goes, oh gosh, there's something wrong. Well, that's not the case.
No, it's not.
They're actually trying to deal with these problems, and I'm impressed. I really am. That's hard to do.
Counselor, you say that, and I appreciate you saying that, and you're shedding some light on. But I sat at that appointment committee meeting
Yeah.
where one of the directors made it seem like gloom and doom, and Armageddon was coming, and that's what that was what prompted my response.
Yeah, I think some of them are sort of living in the past. They remember the problems last year and whatever. But the director or whatever her function
Director,
is,
yep.
very pleasant young lady, seemed forceful to me. And she was very clear that they'd made strides, significant strides, in trying to keep and get things under control. I mean, people falling asleep on tables and, falling over
Yeah.
and falling asleep. They're dealing with that.
Yeah.
But any of us.
And one thing I can say, she's new on the job, if
Yep.
we all know. So, and I think she's really made some improvements and doing a good job, so.
Yep.
Thank you. I mean, that makes me feel a lot better than when I left that appointment committee.
Made me feel a lot better.
Oh,
it
okay.
Really did.
And fine, thank you, Counselor Cheney. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, terrific. Moving on to agenda item 19 right now, citizens request to comment on current agenda items. Doesn't look like we have any takers for that either. Let's move on to agenda item number 20, which is the city manager's report, and I'll turn it over to Kirk Biotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet, the original one had the wrong financial operational trends, so that was what the loose information was that you were given. That's the correct one, and the city clerk has it as well for to put into the minutes. As you can see, the building permits construction, we have one more month to go, and those continue to increase at $53.5 million, which was a $2.1 million increase from last month. So we're going to end in the mid $50 million range for new construction this year, which is great moving into as we're finalizing the budget preparation.
What, I'm sorry to interrupt. Last year, were we just shy of 50 million?
I'm
sorry to put you on the spot there.
Yes, it was just
When we finished the year, I mean,
when it finished the year. Yes.
we're just shy of 50.
Yeah,
right.
yep.
Okay.
Fire numbers were just were pretty normal for this time of year. Public assistance again we were over almost $6,000 this month. We've still spent less than 50% of the budget this year. But we do know that in April and in June, there will be some changes to the emergency rental assistance. So we are still preparing to not know what that's going to look like for us.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I will.
That's okay.
Can we,
You
can
can
we
do-
determine how many residents are,
Yeah.
and I don't expect you to have this
I-
information,
In the hotels?
in the hotels that
Yep.
will be, the emergency rental assistance will cease for them and they'll be
There are
potentially.
32 in hotels right now in Laconia. And 27 of them families, groups that can be any from a single to a group, are Laconia based residents. So 27 of them in theory are going to be falling to us.
And has anyone either from the state or from CAP talked about what the transition looks like for them?
Not really. No.
Okay. But I mean, that could,
Yeah, unless,
I'm not really sure CAP is working on a transition plan. The transition is that they will stop receiving state services.
Yep.
And then follow.
Which completely falls down to us,
When
like,
then it comes to
like
us.
things usually do.
I do know that Kathy is actively reaching out to some of these people now, even though they're still receiving services. They're trying to mitigate the impacts on the city for when that assistance is permanent.
I mean, we could very well see a significant spike in these numbers, not only of people, but just talking about the numbers for city relief really spiking significantly, correct? I mean, if they're, for all intents and purposes, they leave the hotels or motels they're staying in right now, they're gonna come to you.
That is correct. I would expect that there would be a spike, but I also expect that it's going to flatten out fairly quickly just because of the policies we have in place. So, but we'll find out when it happens.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Kirk.
No, please, no, that's great. Again, police numbers were up again a little bit this month. But have been staying pretty steady. Property tax collection looks good. Motor vehicle registration is down a little bit, but nothing concerning. Next page is overtime. Both the numbers that you generally see a little bit higher than others were both down this month, and I think they're going to continue to trend down as their departments are either at full or near full, which is very good for both those. Public Works, we noticed, is up a little bit, but we would expect that this time of year with the winter maintenance going on. No major changes. Parks and Rec, we have no grievances pending. Impact fees are relatively unchanged throughout the year so far. And not, same thing with the fund, the expendable trust balances. The code office has continued to update this, and I think it's evolving sort of what we put in for the information, so that's continuing to grow. I know one of the pieces that was looked at was how we compare month to month as opposed to just a singular month. So there's the numbers for February of 23 and 22. They're not a big difference between the 2 months. And as you'll see, year to date, we've had 605 building permits. And we'll get, again, that piece, I know that's one that's come up a few times here. We'll continue to grow that set of data so we can get more information out of there, and so we're working on that.
Interrupt you for a second, Council Lippman.
Impact fees, in terms of a plan for utilizing the fees and the projection, is that something we could get? I think, looking at the current revenues are starting to pick up pace, and particularly with what's coming behind that, just be good to be thinking. It doesn't make sense for us to, if you will, hold a balance there and put it to use, because basically helps offset tax requirements, tax raising.
Yes, yep, and we do, I have been trying to look towards those when we're trying to make some of our decisions, so we'll absolutely continue to do that.
Just look at the school number, that's a roof somewhere.
Yeah, and I have not, actually, we have talked to the school about a couple projects that they're doing and already looking at those numbers, so we do continue to keep those in our minds as we look for spending, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, as the representative to the planning board, at our last meeting, there was one of the members asked an applicant, are you aware that you can request a waiver of, I think, up to 80% of the impact fee? And after the meeting, after all the other business had been taken care of, the chairman had a discussion with that member and with the rest of us about, he felt it was not our obligation. It is on the checklist of things when you make application, but maybe we shouldn't be so hasty about recommending we would cancel or largely cancel the impact fee.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I guess that before we establish that as being a fact, I'm not sure that's the case, Bruce.
You're not sure what's,
That there is the credit that you talked about against the impact fees, or if there is something, it's different than just an 80% credit.
well, it's up to 80%. That's what was described to us in the meeting.
I'd like to, being involved. in
Yeah, let me
establishing it,
look
because
into
that
it and I'll
doesn't
get
sound right
back to
me.
you.
I'm just reporting
Yeah.
what the chairman of the,
I'm not sure the chairman may be right. No
well,
offense.
it seemed, everybody there seemed to agree. They'd been through it before. And they talked about that they hadn't always given 80%, 30%, 40%, 50%. And they named some projects that got different percentages.
Boy,
I only mention it because, at some point, we may want to go back and look at that and see if we're waiving.
Well, we recently updated the impact fee to go migrate from 25% to 50%. And I don't,
And I agree with that, Henry. I'm just saying, let's make sure we get it.
yeah, I just don't have, I was involved in developing it to begin with. I have no recollection whatsoever of that provision that you're citing, and I may have a bad recollection at this point, but that.
Yeah, and I don't remember doing it when I was on the planning board, but maybe but
So-
we'll look into it.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
the planning director said it was on the checklist that you could apply for a waiver of some portion of the impact fee. So I'm just,
But I'm just not, and I don't disagree with that at all, Bruce. All I'm saying is that 80% is extraordinarily
well,
high, and
that's why I'm
sometimes
bringing it up.
lawyers get carried away and, and they bring everyone with them, then this
I,
might be a bad data set he's working off of. but
it's,
How about we do a little research? Here?
that's where I was.
Let's. we can
I'm
get
on
that
it.
back
Yep,
to us.
yeah, I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Fair
enough.
Yeah, I will take care of that.
Follow up when you were after this.
No, just on the impact fees in terms of just part of the budget process, it'd be good to get that perspective.
Yep. I think we're on the same page, Henry. which
Yeah,
is-
no,
I was concerned when I
Yeah.
heard.
the only credit I remember is of a business being able to get a credit against the school fee. That's
Right.
the only thing that I recall. And that,
This was, this, my memory serves me. No, this was somebody who was converting a portion of their house into an apartment, which I guess they considered a business. So I guess that fits.
We're gonna
we
get,
should- yeah,
we're gonna shed some light on that.
Good, good,
Anyway,
good. Thank
go
you.
right ahead, Kirk.
Nope, that's fine. It's, revenue and expenditures are within their averages as normal. And the fire department billing report, we talked about that in the past this month, comparative to last year, about $40,000 above where they were last year at this time for net charges. So there's a little bit more billing out there. So as we remember from the presentation before, the net charges, what we'll be able to bill off of and actually try to collect. So that's good to see that number increasing. Public Works has been busy with their storms, but all their numbers we're fine with their numbers are a little bit under in their winter maintenance overtime, but that's not a concern. And there's now tomorrow's
24 hours may change that.
and now tomorrow. So, but they've been doing a great job with that, and
I would like to share with you too, I bumped into a couple of people downtown just recently who were very complimentary of the work DPW had done during the last storm and how efficient they were in getting the snow done. I guess it was in the middle of the night, right? You worked
Yep.
through the night there. Yeah. But they were really complimentary. It was there in the evening, gone in the morning, and anyway, so just I'd like you to know that.
One of the interesting things, Mr. Mayor, was they plowed the snow into the center of Main Street. So that the people coming up Main Street past all the stores would stay to the left and the people coming off of whatever the street is out here.
this one's
Yeah.
Hanover.
Hanover, yeah, that's what I meant, Hanover,
I-
or the other street.
Canal.
Canal had a place to go. And they didn't have to go through the snow or anything else. I was impressed with the way they did it.
Genius.
Yeah.
Absolute genius.
That's all I have.
Great job, Wes.
City manager, Could you perhaps just touch on, we know we lost an ambulance company that serves Concord Hospital, and that may have some impact on us. I just wanted to just touch on it briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. So as everybody saw in the paper, Best Care Ambulance closed. They are a primarily transfer business from one hospital to another. So, and they did take some out of Lakes or Concord Hospital, Laconia. They weren't their primary one for this hospital, which is a good thing. But certainly the concern was, is the loss of this ambulance company going to affect the fire department? Chief Jubert and I met with the EMS director and the ER director from Concord Hospital, Laconia, a couple days afterwards. And the intent was to say the fire department has done transfers out of there since we began the ambulance agreement with the hospital almost 27 years ago. But it's only been under absolute need, emergency. There is nobody else, and this person has to get out of this hospital now. That continued even after the partnership left. Chief Jubert and I, when we met, reiterated that would continue. We have no issues with that, but that the fire department ambulance will not be taking on any more transfers and not picking up any of the slack of what couldn't be done. These guys are busy enough as it is, trying to just maintain the ambulances within the city. And so it was a very good meeting. And as far as I know, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen any increased requests for transfer. So in the first couple of weeks of it, it's been fine. But we stated our case pretty strongly, and I think they're clear with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, who is the primary?
Stewart's.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Did I understand that they looked at some other ambulance service to come in and help?
They haven't said anything yet.
Okay.
I think their options are certainly open to make sure that they can meet their services, but nothing yet.
Thank you, Kirk. Okay, moving along on our agenda, item number 21 under new business, 21A, resolution 2023-07 relative to readopting and setting the amounts established for the optional on all veterans property tax credit. House Bill 1667, Chapter 121 of the laws of 2022 amended RSA 72:28 and RSA 72:28 dash small b, expanding the optional and all veterans property tax credit to eligible active duty veterans not yet discharged. Due to the passage of HB 1667, it's now necessary for the city to readopt the optional provision of RSA 72:28 standard optional veterans tax credit in the amount of $500 effective April 1st, 2023, and to readopt the all veterans credit of RSA 72:28 B, all veterans tax credit in the amount of $500. If not readopted, the veterans credits would revert back to the $50 standard credit. Any questions on what I've just put forward there? I think it's pretty straightforward, but okay, we have a series of three motions here. The first one is to a motion to waive a reading of resolution 2023-07 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion?
So we have to take a roll call.
I'm wondering if Counselor Susie, are you still engaged with us? Are you still on?
Yes, I am.
I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Secondly, I'm looking for a motion to move a first reading of resolution 2023-07 relative to readopting and setting the amounts established for the optional veterans and all veterans property tax credits as presented. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Littman. Is there any further?
Mr.
Discussion.
Mayor, I'd ask that someone else. be
I took you on this just as a veteran. Oh, I
I am a
understand.
Veteran, and I think I
I
should.
was thinking,
abstain. Yeah.
fair enough. Then let's slow it down a little bit. Looking for to move the motion, Counselor Littman, seconded by Counselor Haynes.
Have discussion.
And discussion.
So I was just wondering whether, we were talking earlier about how property values have gone up and so forth, as to whether we might want to index the $500, and nobody, I think, wants to go back to $50. this is my read of the room, and whether we ought to update that if we're allowed to under statute, to index it by the value that we're increasing the CPI component, going
How do
forward.
we move that, or is it set in
I would,
RSA?
that's, I guess, want to get clear.
It's in a range and this is nearing the top of the range. I believe the range actually goes up to 750 if I read it correctly today, but it's not a I didn't see anything that had any other value to it.
I would be interested in moving it at 500, but also if we could look at indexing it going forward.
How would you index it based on the value of the property or?
Based on
CPI.
the CPI we use to update the budget. So basically the stays current with
Yep.
what we're raising the taxes by.
I don't think we can. I think, well, I mean, I certainly go back and look again, but when I read it today, it was the dollar figure was defined.
Yeah, no, the dollar figure would be defined. You would just bring it back I would leave it the 500 for this year, but when we come back and do a budget, if you're proposing a 4% increase in the tax rate, you move this by 4%.
Because at this point, we wouldn't. It wouldn't be contrary to the RSA because we'd be going, say, 4% over $520.
Yeah, it would-
right?
it would
We're
have
not
to-
getting up to the 750 limit.
Right, we would just have to, make sure that we didn't exceed the statutory requirement up to. I mean,
So would you like to do that going forward? Would you like to do that? How would you like to handle that?
I guess one of two ways we could, for this, the taxes that are due coming up, right, would be in June, right? But then thereafter, the one coming up for as part of the budget process, we could, amend this to include an index.
Because these do not have to be reviewed each year. This only has to be reviewed this year
I'm s-
because of the
I'm just suggesting that we do.
So I
well,
would suggest that after the budget is adopted, maybe this is added to an agenda which allows us to move it based on the CPI, which would be taken up, would be for the next budget. Is that correct?
The only reason I'm saying we should do it with the budget is because it's going to reduce the amount raised by taxes. So we ought to be aware of that upfront.
Okay,
So I'm just saying the 500 would be good for this tax year, and then we would,
and if we increase it, we would have to adjust for that in the
Future tax.
future.
so in
future
budgeting, we
budgets.
anticipate we're going to do it,
yeah.
right?
Because
And
at
then-
that point, we know what our CPI is going to be, right?
And then do we have to take another step after the budget's adopted or not? I don't know, but
Yeah.
that wouldn't make a difference, but I think that's sound
We could,
process.
I would pass it as is tonight and then allow you to take a careful look at the statute, but just trying to, because $500 today isn't worth, with inflation's not what it's gonna be worth, 5 years from now.
Fair enough.
I agree.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Abstain.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes,
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 4 votes in the affirmative. Counselor Littman,
when we're done with this, I would like to raise one more issue related to exemption.
so 4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Would you like to raise it now or?
Yes, I think we also have an elderly exemption that we, on our books that we talked about also reviewing every other year or something like that. So I think we ought to take a look at that too, to make sure we're complying with what.
I'll take a look at
I got to abstain again.
it.
We're right behind you, if not there with us.
Oh, council's gonna have to.
Can't vote us. Finally, on agenda item 21A, looking for a motion to move to schedule the public hearing on March 27th, 2023 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Phelps, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Abstain.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
4 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Thank you, Counselor Littman. That was a good suggestion. Once I finally understood what we were talking about, it took me a little while to catch up, but it's spot on. Thank you. Item number 21B. Request by the Lakes Region Cancer Support Team, Inc. to use Weir's Community Park parking lot for a Dragon Boat Race Festival fundraising event. Lakes Region Cancer Support Team, Inc., which I think is the new name for Gilda's House, if I'm not mistaken, has requested use of the Weir's Community Park parking lot on Saturday, September 23rd, 2023, for a Dragon Boat Race Festival fundraising event that will be hosted at the NASWA. Participants and patrons will park at the Weir's Community Park parking lot and be shuttled to the event at the NASWA. The Lakes Region Cancer Support Team, Inc. will be the benefactor of the event. City Council approval is being requested because this event is anticipating revenues above $2,000. Lakes Region Cancer Support, Inc. is also requesting a waiver of city fees relating to this event. The waiver request was granted in prior years. There's no direct cost to the city. Okay, Matt Manzer submitted this report and recommends that the request be approved as stated above. So I'll be right now be looking for a motion to move to approve the request from the Lakes Region Cancer Support Team, Inc. to use the Weir's Community Park parking lot on Saturday, September 23rd, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. for parking for the Dragon Boat Race Festival held at the NASWA and to waive city fees related to this event. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to make mention that this is a great event. Anybody has a chance to go watch it, get out and watch it.
Fun.
Yep.
I rode in it. I got wet. I got cold. I'm going to do it, but I might beg to differ. It's wet, cold, and difficult.
You may notice us laughing.
You notice I said view it.
If there's no further discussion, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes,
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 21C, resolution 2023-08, request to submit a grant application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for a fire prevention and safety grant. If awarded, this request is to accept $116,057 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency for a fire prevention and safety grant to fund a 1-year full-time fire prevention community risk reduction position. This position will focus on multifamily rental inspections, mechanical inspections, and public education. The position will also help the fire department meet the increasing fire prevention demands due to the continued growth in Laconia, including the state school property development. The city's share of this grant is 5%, which is $5,802.85. Chief Joubert has indicated that we accept this grant due to the existing 286 multifamily rental properties and the projected growth and development of Laconia. So right now, go right ahead, Counselor Littman.
Just a question for the chief, if you wouldn't mind.
Come right up. Welcome. It's nice to see you.
Yes, thanks for having me. Chief, in terms of what the position's intended to do, can you though describe how you're gonna staff it for a 1-year basis, where we're gonna are we hiring someone in to do this, or are we reassigning existing staff to do it?
So we currently have a person that's doing part-time multifamily inspections at around 16 hours a week. If that person was interested, they have the experience, they have the knowledge of the city. So we might be able to utilize that person for that position, or it may be posted, or somebody from the inside who's already currently on the floor.
So is it contemplated that it just will be a 1-year project?
It's funded for 1 year through this FEMA program. We can reapply.
but you, if I may, you will backfill that person's position, correct? In other words, if you move somebody up into this full-time, you're gonna hire somebody.
So if it's the current part-time person that moves up, it wouldn't need to be backfilled due to it only being 16 hours a week. If there was somebody from the floor that was really interested in inspections and prevention and they wanted an opportunity to do this, then that position would have to be filled.
Follow-up. Is the 116 cover the cost of the time and their pension and
Everything.
all fully loaded?
Uniforms, all the necessary equipment, everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for the chief? Seeing none, thanks, chief.
Thank you.
So right now, looking for a series of three motions. The first one is to move a rating of the resolution 2023-08 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes,
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Secondly, looking for a motion to move a first reading of resolution 2023-08 relative to authorizing application and acceptance of a grant application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency for a fire prevention and safety grant in the amount of $116,057. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
yes,
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on March 27th, 2023 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
yes,
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21D, which is temporary traffic order 2023-03 Laconia Motorcycle Week. This year's Laconia Motorcycle Week is June 10th through June 18th, 2023. Temporary traffic order 2023-03 is attached in relation to the event. The temporary traffic order, as presented, has been reviewed by Public Works, Laconia Police Department, and the Laconia Fire Department. The staff recommends approval of this temporary traffic order for this year's Laconia Motorcycle Week. Counselor Littman.
what are the major changes, if any, in this plan?
There was just a couple of changes. One was, there was some organization of it to make it a little bit easier to understand. There was some confusion in a department.
I'm talking
And-
about like substantive.
Yeah, and the substance piece is, post bike week, parking for the vendors as they're cleaning up, they were blocking, there was a lot of blocking of parking spots, things like that. We wanted to get that out of there, so they fixed that. So that was why it wasn't a normal consent and action this time, and we put it under new business.
Thank you. So. Okay, Counselor Littman will move to approve temporary traffic order 2023-03 as presented for Laconia Motorcycle Week 2023, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes,
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. We have item number 21E, which is discussion regarding implementation of a city hall flag policy. We have touched on this over the past couple of weeks as it was in development. Do we have a written policy yet from?
We don't, and we won't until, we did see a little bit more clarification on exactly the direction,
Okay,
that they want us to go.
Move to table.
and it's non-debatable. Is there a second?
Fine.
Counselor Haynes. All those in favor, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman.
yes,
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion is now tabled. Item number 21F, which is a replacement of the boiler at the Weirs Fire Station and Community Center. The boilers at the Weirs Fire Station, which also supplies the Weirs Beach Community Center with heat and hot water, has failed its state of New Hampshire annual inspection and needs replacing. In preparation for this happening and falling under next year's capital improvement program, the fire chief and facilities director sent out a request for proposal to complete the work. As the boiler has now failed its inspection, the timeline for replacement has been moved up. The winning bid for materials and labor is $19,600. City manager is requesting council approval to use this $19,600 from the non-capital reserve account to pay for the boiler replacement. City manager, I'd ask you to sort of touch on that a little bit, a little clarification.
Yeah, this is just, it was, we knew that the boiler was having issues. This boiler, it's situated at the Weirs Beach Fire Station, but it does the heat and hot water for both the community center and the fire station. We were hoping to be able to get this moved, to be a longer time before it failed. It did not. And is, like I said, is in my report, is in needs for replacement. Normally under these conditions, we would look towards the departments for funding for any, issues that come up like this. This is a pretty significant amount of money. It does benefit both, multiple departments. So so that's why I'm asking for us to be able to take care of this.
Council Lippman.
Would impact fees help offset that draw on the reserve?
Not if we're way 80%.
We have a balance in fire.
There is a balance in fire. The parks one is in there. I've always looked at that as the parks themselves, but I mean, that would be up to you guys. If you wanted to pull out of that, we certainly could amend this and use partial on that. I did draw down some of the fire one before, trying not to draw it all the way down, so.
So total amount in the.
9,000.
Half of it.
I mean, the choice up to yours. I would like to get it paid for without having to dip into their individual budget. So if we choose to take some out of the non-capital reserve and impact fees, I'm fine with getting that done.
I'd just soon take it out. I mean, that's, the impact fees just sort of sit there and just putting them to use.
Where are we at with impact fees for?
We just had it.
It's not-
Yeah,
Yeah.
but fires at 9, parks is, I think, 28. Again, that's.
But it's primarily used by
It's-
fire, so it's, it's odd that it would go 50-50, but nonetheless, the park seems to have more in it, right?
Yeah, well, just in their
So
impact
Parks
fees, yeah.
has 28.7 and fire has 93.50.
Question,
Go right ahead.
how much is in the non-capital reserve account?
Would you please repeat
Yeah,
that?
what was in the capital?
Non-capital reserve.
Non-capital reserve. account?
335, I believe, is that you're looking at it right there.
If I could step in there, there is a 335 in the non-capital reserve, but much of that is already committed by prior vote of council. And I believe it's about $120,000 that is what is uncommitted at this time.
Would you consider taking a third from each?
Yeah, no, I would, I'm looking to not dip into their budgets to make them do it. This still relative, not, only a third of the way through or 2/3 of the way through the year. So yeah, I'm fine with,
It's about
We're doing that.
$8,500 a piece.
yep. If you guys are okay with pulling out of those two accounts, we can do that.
Bad math. That's about 65 space.
You're not gonna do much with, it's gonna take a while to get a reasonable amount to work out of the impact fee for fire at that value, so might as well
Correct.
use it to do this and
Yep.
sweep it out.
It's fine with me.
Do a third out of each of the 3.
Just a suggestion and.
It's up to you.
I'd just as soon see the 9,000 from fire and the balance from the capital reserve.
I'm okay with
How often do you have to tap into that fund, that balance with fire department in particular?
Out of their impact fees,
Oh, their impact fees.
pretty rare. We did it recently, and that's the first time we've done it in quite a while.
And how do they, where do their impact fees come from?
Build, new building
New
construction.
buildings. Okay.
Yep.
Probably worth doing a seminar for the council on update on income, impact fees, given the questions that came.
Sure, we can, that's easy. Yep.
Where would you like to go?
I'm good with Council Cheney's suggestion. Take the,
I'd move 9,000 from the fire and the balance from the capital reserve fund.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion on the motion that's on the table right now? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 21G. Resolution 2023-09 relative to acceptance of Invest NH Municipal per unit award. MPU 22-100 grant in the amount of $120,000. The city has been awarded a grant in the amount of $120,000 from the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs Invest NH Municipal per Unit Program. The grant funds are for the Pearly Pond 57 Blueberry Lane application. There are no matching funds required from the city in relation to this grant. And Kirk, was there anything you'd like to add to this right now?
No, there was two properties that we have done this on. One we're still waiting to submit on, just because we haven't finalized their building permits, but this was one that we were able to help Laconia Housing Authority with their Pearly Pond move quickly. That was the whole intent of these Invest in Age grants for municipalities, was to spur on active movement by municipalities to try to get some affordable housing to be built quicker. We were able to do that on this project in particular, so it was nice to get this notification the other night.
Any questions of the city manager right now in regards to this? Okay. We have a series of 3 motions here. The first is to move to waive a reading of resolution 2023-09 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Looking for a second motion to move a first reading of resolution 2023-09 relative to accepting a grant in the amount of $120,000 from the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs Invest NH Municipal per Unit Program for the Pearly Pond 57 Blueberry Lane application. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on March 27th, 2023 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 22 under unfinished business. Agenda item number 22A, which is resolution 2023-06, acceptance of a 2023 New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Aquatic Plant Control Grant. The Department of Environmental Service, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program has notified the city of Laconia that it has been awarded a grant to fund 50% of project costs for aquatic plant control remediation. The project has been awarded in the past. New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services works with city departments to identify locations for plant control to be completed, hires contractors to complete the work and returns for post-remediation testing. At the February 27, 2023 City Council meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing on this matter. And as you recall, the public hearing was held this evening. The city's share of the grant is $42,530, which is 50% of the total. 40% of $1,000, of the total has been approved in the fiscal year 23 budget. So this item, there are 3 motions associated with it. The first is to move to waive a reading of resolution 2023-06 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Second motion we're looking for here is to move a second reading of resolution 2023-06 relative to the acceptance of a 2023 New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Aquatic Plant Control Grant in the amount of $42,530. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Was that you, Counselor Susie?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay. Might have been a hiccup. Seeing no further discussion, ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes,
Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The last motion in regards to this agenda item is a motion to move to approve resolution 2023-06 relative to authorizing application and acceptance of $42,530 grant funding from the 2023 New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Aquatic Plant Control Grant, and to authorize the city manager to sign all documents related to this grant. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk, to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
yes,
Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
All right, here we are at agenda item number 22B. This is in regards to parking options requested by Scott Everett, August Properties, for his property at Lakeport at 51 Elm Street. Kirk, I'm gonna hand it off to you.
Thank you. So following the last meeting when you approved me to move forward with a license agreement with Mr. Everett's company. There was still some questions on their end and some concerns that they wanted to have done. So we went back and reviewed the license. And there's a couple of changes that they're proposing and they would like to have approved. And if approved tonight, they're fine with this. They're ready to move on and we can sign this immediately. Couple of them were just housekeeping. We relooked at the space numbers. We moved spaces from 36 total to 37 total to 36 total. 37 did not work out to be a spot. They wanted to add an every year review. If you remember, when you guys talked, you wanted to do a review after the first year. They'd like to come back every year and just have this discussion to see how things are going for both sides, both for them and for us. But that's not a binding change to the contract at that point. It's to have the discussion. We put in a local address contact, which is exactly what we talked about tonight at the subcommittee meeting about having addressing local contacts for our businesses. That was added in there as well. And then the big issue is just more than a housekeeping thing is the original, what you approved was a $10,000 per year license agreement with a 10% escalator at the end of the contract. They wanted to go to 7,500 and keep the 10% escalator in there. When we put these numbers in, this was actually, even when we were having some discussions, when I was discussing with them over the course of the negotiations, if you will, the numbers of 7,500 and 10,000 bounced back and forth. We had the 10,000, they'd like to go, they saw an earlier version, we talked about this, they'd like to go to the 7,500 per year, but keep the escalator in there, so it'll adjust after the 5 years. Those were the main changes, but because it was a dollar figure change in there, before we went and signed it, it had to come back so you guys could ratify that, and if you continue to agree with it, and if you are, and you vote for it tonight, we'll get it signed.
Any questions of the city manager before we go any further? Seeing none, right now we're looking for 2 motions. So certainly the first one is to motion to take it off the table.
I have a question about that. We never tabled it. We actually voted on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure why that was it does not need to come off the table. It is it's back, it's new,
It'd be just an adjustment. to
an
the
adjustment to it. Yep,
contract.
yep.
So right now I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve the limited license agreement for patron use. As presented, and to authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. So made by
So
Counselor
moved.
Haynes, seconded by Counselor
Susie.
Susie. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Counselor Felch.
And I just want to make it clear to some of my constituents, that this does not include the parking lot behind Lakeport Landing.
Correct.
Okay, so if there are any other questions, no, seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes,
Counselor Littman,
Yes,
Counselor Haynes.
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
No.
4 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. With that, I'd like to adjourn the city council meeting.